What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA
Thursday, March 4th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, we have a 9-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like TJ McConnell from the Indiana Pacers playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a good defense overall and they're middle of the pack defending opposing point guards. TJ McConnell has averaged 26.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 14% usage rate. But take a look at his last 3 games. He scored 71, 19, and 45 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 36, 24, and 46 minutes. He's projected at 30 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6 times value. He's 5,000 FanDuel salary and 1,000 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 225.5 points scored in this game. Now, just a word of caution here. I always like to say this. When you get a guy that's averaging 26.5 fantasy points per game on the season, who drops 71 fantasy points in 36 minutes, most times the following game is a huge letdown. Now, this is a back-to-back, but the thing is here, on FanDuel, his salary is only 5,000 DraftKings salary, so he only needs 25 fantasy points on FanDuel to get you 5 times value. So, although I think it's going to be a letdown game, I think he can still hit value on FanDuel, and he has been rolling lately, playing a bunch of minutes. So I like TJ McConnell here versus the Denver Nuggets. Okay, another point guard that I like is Kemba Walker from the Boston Celtics playing the Toronto Raptors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing point guards. Kemba Walker has averaged 31.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. He scored 38, 42, and 47 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 33, 32, and 33 minutes. So he's been on fire, and he's projected at 33.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's 7,000 FanDuel salary and 200 more on DraftKings. Now, he's also scored 30, 35, 17, and 37 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Raptors. So 4 out of those 5 games were pretty good. So I like Kemba Walker here versus the Toronto Raptors. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Ty Jerome from the Oklahoma City Thunder playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Ty Jerome has averaged 24.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 15% usage rate. He scored 23, 19, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 28, 29, and 22 minutes. He's projected at 24.2 fantasy points here tonight, and even on FanDuel, that's 6.2 times value. He's 3,900 FanDuel salary, and he's 500 less on DraftKings. So he does not need much to hit value. He's been playing a bunch of minutes. He's been productive. So I like Ty Jerome here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Another shooting guard that I like is Dillon Brooks from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Dillon Brooks has averaged 26.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 32, 17, and 25 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 21, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 25.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $5,200 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. Now, I also like this pick because he scored 38, 25, and 21 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Bucks. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 233.5 points scored in this game. So I like Dillon Brooks here versus the Milwaukee Bucks.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, who do we have at the small forward position? I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Nicholas Batum from the LA Clippers playing the Washington Wizards, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Nicholas Batum has averaged 22.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with an 11% usage rate. He scored 21, 18, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 30, and 25 minutes. He's projected at 21.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's $4,200 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. Now, I like this pick for 3 reasons here. 1, it's a great matchup. 2, Kawhi Leonard is questionable, so even if he plays, maybe he's going to be limited, giving more opportunity to Nicholas Batum. And then 3, Vegas thinks there's going to be 237 points scored in this game, so that's a super high scoring game. There's a lot going for Nicholas Batum here. He doesn't need much to hit value, so I like Nicholas Batum here versus the Washington Wizards. Another small forward that I like is Michael Porter Jr. from the Denver Nuggets playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 12th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Michael Porter Jr. has averaged 28.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He scored 25, 42, and 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 24, 35, and 27 minutes. He's projected at 31.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $6,600 FanDuel salary and $200 more on DraftKings. He scored 26 and 32 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Pacers. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 225.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup for him tonight, so I like Michael Porter Jr. here versus the Indiana Pacers. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Jay Crowder from the Phoenix Suns playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Jay Crowder has averaged 21.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 22, 4, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 26, and 28 minutes. So his production has not been all that great, but he is playing a bunch of minutes, and he's projected at 21.7 fantasy points here tonight, which is 5 times value. He's $4,300 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. One of the reasons I like this pick is because he scored 34, 40, 21, 19, and 32 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Warriors. So that's really good player versus team history. Vegas thinks there's going to be 224.5 points scored in this game. So I like Jay Crowder here versus the Golden State Warriors. Okay, a value play for you. He's more of a DraftKings value play. I think he's a little overpriced on FanDuel, but I like Dario Saric from the Phoenix Suns playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Dario Saric has averaged 20 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 18 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 33 and 19 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 26 and 15 minutes. He's projected at 20.9 fantasy points here tonight. Now on FanDuel, that's only 4.5 times value because he's $4,600 FanDuel salary, but he's $700 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. And he scored 29, 23, and 48 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Warriors. So that's excellent player versus team history. So you could stack Saric and Jay Crowder here versus the Warriors and save a bunch of salary in your lineup. Both of those guys got pretty big upside, especially on DraftKings. So I like Dario Saric here versus the Golden State Warriors.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Miles Turner from the Indiana Pacers playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing centers, but Miles Turner has averaged 34.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 26, 21, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 28, 27, and 33 minutes. He's projected at 34.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $6,500 FanDuel salary, and he's $600 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Now, he scored 7, 31, 41, 32, and 20 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Nuggets. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 225.5 points scored in this game. So he's been doing okay. His DraftKings price is really nice. I might shy away from him on FanDuel just because he really hasn't been all that productive in the past 3 games. And it is a back-to-back, but I checked his player log, and he plays plenty of minutes on back-to-backs, so I don't think that's a concern. So I like Miles Turner, especially on DraftKings, here versus the Denver Nuggets. Okay, guys, so it's just hard to ignore this stud based on his recent performance. I mean, this guy's just been on absolute fire, so it's just hard to ignore him, hard to fade him. So I like Nikola Jokic from the Denver Nuggets playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 12th worst defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing centers. Nikola Jokic has averaged 57.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 36 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He scored 70, 77, and 58 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 38, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 57.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $11,600 FanDuel salary and $700 less on DraftKings. So I like that DraftKings price. Now, he scored 56, 28, 58, 38, and 59 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Pacers. So 3 out of those 5 games, he would have been hitting value. But his last 5 games, 70, 77, 58, 56, 58. This guy's been on fire. Could be the game that he has a letdown game. But I'm going to ride the hot hand here. I'll have him in a lineup. I'm going to be a little bit cautious coming off of back-to-back 70-plus fantasy point games. I won't go all in on Jokic today, but I do like Nikola Jokic here versus the Indiana Pacers.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.